Trent, what the fuck's happening, man? The fuck you up to? What you been doing, man?
Let's do that.
What's
that's
better
easy.
than bimming? And let's just have a little bit of fun. And the other thing I think we have to do, guys, is like we can talk about ourselves. Like I don't know, Travis, what the fuck you're up to. And we are a podcast about nothing.
Here we are, finally. DorkCast episode 39. Don't call it a comeback. After a pause through the holidays and fighting through a busy start to 2022, the Dorks come back strong-ish. In this episode, we just hang out, the four of us, talking about what we've been doing, the reboot of live conferences, and some of the things we're looking to accomplish in the coming year. Please share the movement, and if you see us out and about, come up and say hi. We're always looking for guests, topics, and to make new friends. Except for Jeff. No eye contact with Jeff, please.
Nerd! And we're live. Episode 39. Don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years. Actually, we've been here for like a little over a year. 39 episodes to be exact. Yeah. But if we released regularly, y'all would know how long we've been around, but none of us know. So we'll keep everybody guessing. That's right. You got the construction dorks here today. And it is just the four of us. We are starting off the year with a solo show. We made it through the holidays, the crazy. I know you've all been out there probably dealing with all the same stuff, freaking out. Some of you are locked up in place. Some of you are running around like maniacs, licking things you shouldn't. So, hey, we're just here to talk about what we're up to. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Going to go around the room as we usually do. Jonathan, I'm going to start with you because you did a little artwork. You got something new going on behind you.
Well, yeah, man, I started to look at all of the guests that we've had on. And for most every guest, and it was most every guest, I tried to do everybody, but I was still learning how to draw. You know what I mean? But for most every guest, we did a little bit of an animation. We did a little bit of a caricature, and that's something I want to keep doing. I really do enjoy it. But I'll tell you what, those times, like when we had the Dorkettes on and we had to do like 6 people in like 3 days, I realized exactly how much I am not an art person. Because I'm like sitting there swearing at the pen, like, dude, this doesn't look like her. That doesn't look like her. She's going to throw stuff at me, if she sees this picture. And so I got to say, it's been a big part of what I thought was fun about the show. And if you've been on the show, there's no way I'm going to forget you. By the way, if you look right up above my head, there's a couple people here who haven't been on the show. Pablo, you have not been on the show, but you asked for a dork portrait, so I got you one. So you're going to have to be on the show sooner or later. You're just going to have to come on. But yeah, I mean, it's been so fun to like take a little time and really think about the people that are going to come on. And I gotta say, once you draw somebody, you never forget them. You don't forget their name. You don't forget what they look like. You could color your hair blue and, pierce your nose and I'd still know what you look like. So that's what I've been up to. And just so you know, I do have a drink tonight, but I'm not drinking alcohol because it's January. So I'm doing Gatorade protein. I don't know what everybody else is doing, but I'm doing Gatorade protein. How about you, Trent? You have the same background, but
I do.
I don't know if you helped me with those.
No. I think the background was a pretty good homage to just like the past year. I mean, so obviously this is the first episode we're doing this year, and I think it was a good reflection of last year and the ones before. And the Doodleys are cool. I mean, I think everybody gives Jonathan, a hell of a shout out for those things. It's fun to go on LinkedIn and some of the other things and see them as profile photos and it's so I think they've gone a long way. They're cool. I think it's been a pretty cool branding piece for the show. And so I wanted to put them up because here we are, the first show of this year. And, but don't call it a comeback, but John, I'm with you. I'm just sipping on some water tonight. It's January, right? You got to start the year off, get a little, recharged and refreshed. And I got a feeling Travis will probably be doing the same thing, but go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I am doing the same thing. I've got my Evolve MEP mug full of water. I'm not on any sort of wagon or falling off a wagon or whatever the proper term is. I just have to go yet again help coach some youth sport somewhere, and they typically do frown upon you showing up drunk to those things. So I decided to sip on some water tonight. My daughter is they're still doing basketball. That's still open here, so she's on the sixth grade team. So got to go help coach. There's 8 12-year-old girls on how to run up and down the court. So I got to go do that after we're done recording here. Yeah, so don't call it a comeback, like Trent said. It's a little tongue in cheek. We with the holidays and everything like that, we didn't get another podcast out. So it's been almost exactly a month, I think, something like that. So
close.
So hopefully everybody didn't forget about us, and when this pops back up in your podcast app, you'll happily listen to it again. What about you, Jeff?
I'm with all of you. I got a Zip Fizz. Y'all have heard me talk about this one before.
Yeah.
A little B12 in there. I'm a B12 hop artist. I'm doing the same. It's January. It's time to get recharged. It's time to, get back going again. Talk about where we're at, what we're doing, where we're coming. This is a grassroots effort. And so we really wanted to focus in on, what do y'all want to hear? I know a lot of you listen to this at other times and you're listening to what we do and how we do it, but this is about bringing you guys in. But then again, it's also about us at times too. So I think we're going to bring more of these, just the 4 of us shows back, if they get, good ratings, good listens, and, we can get some good conversation, which, by the way, if you get the 4 of us together, the pre-show talks are almost as fun as the show for most of us. So, but I mean, I've got some stuff I've been up to, but, Trent, what have you been doing, man? Like, what's taking up your time, and what's better than BIM in Trent's world right now?
What's better than BIM? Man, what's been taking up the time outside of BIM has been, I'm pushing right now to get back into racing the car a little bit. So, been under the hood of that thing, had it up, and trying to get the track car back. It's winter time, so it's a good opportunity to kind of fix all the things that I've messed up in it over the year. And hopefully once the weather warms up, test some new things. So that's been one of the things I've been trying to get back into and getting back into shape so I can do that. And that's life outside of BIM. And the conferences are back, right, guys? I mean, so that's been kind of pulling away from work a little bit and focusing on some of the conferences. Last year was back hot and heavy, probably the last half of the year, I would say. Seemed like once the gate opened up, everybody was trying to have a conference. Right. So
they're starting off heavy again this year. I mean, we're all going to be in Tampa next week, right? Throw some teasers out there. If we see you around, we might pull you aside and get some sound bites. I think that we were looking at our podcast analytics, and some of the better shows we had. One of the better shows we had last year was at the Stratus event, and that was a hodgepodge of grabbing people, and everybody seemed to like that. So
yeah, that was fun.
Sorry to interrupt, Trent, but just trying to tease some of that.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I think it's good to go around and talk about that, because I think this year is going to be a busy conference year, I believe. I think, I mean, at least I hope so, because if it's not, that probably means that something's making a comeback, and it's not us. It's the COVID word, So hopefully that's coming to an end, and the conferences do happen. Although when they open up like crazy, you got to play triage and pick and choose the ones, because, we all have day jobs, and we can't derelict our duties there. But I do like that the conferences are back, and we get to see people and collaborate a little more. Jeff, what's up, man?
It used to be about, learning, but well, actually for me, it was, really about creating a network in the beginning. But is there anything you're out there looking for this year? Like, is North or you, or, anything in your stack that you're chasing right now that you might be wanting to focus on?
Yeah. So the big focus right now at North is is productization. So the past probably 6 months have been, at least in my department and on my desk, has been a heavy push for productization of a lot of the stuff that we've been doing for years, but we never really nailed it down. We've been doing all plumbing fixture in wall prefab for probably a dozen years. But we never really took the time to nail it down model based and really work to standardize, even with engineers to standardize the fixtures they're using, trying to get that spec'd into projects. So we're talking to them about that. We're talking to local engineers and jurisdictional authorities about, standardizing just simple things like water rough-in heights and even line sizes, all that. We're really nailing a lot of that down, and we've built a pretty decent BIM catalog of some things that we've been doing for a really long time, but trying to get those, spec'd into jobs. I think this year's push is going to be too. Some of you guys out there that are in my network may see North Mechanical, maybe even selling some of this stuff to some of you guys out there across the country, some of my connections. So hoping that we can kind of push that into the market too for the guys that are doing these jobs in other cities, but maybe they're not as far down the prefab road as we are, but they can still leverage it and kind of let us do some of that heavy lifting for them and help them on their projects.
Awesome.
So that's a big push, I think, over the next year or two, or probably even more. Big focus of ours.
I think you're going to see that from a lot of contractors this year.
It's time, right? Yeah.
It's totally time. And there's also, like, with COVID, there was sort of a reason to look at the business of doing your business differently. And I think that gave us an excuse to do productization and some of these other things as like legit extensions of our business. I got to say, like, in looking at all the businesses that I get to look at, there's definitely been a bigger gap between the bottom and the top when it comes to prefab over the last year. The people that were in it before COVID, they have accelerated forward, and the people that weren't in it, we haven't. At least, and this is what I'm seeing. And Jeff, I'd love to know your opinion. What I'm seeing is there's a lot of people interested in getting in, but COVID, for whatever reason, slowed that down in businesses that weren't already started. Where if you had a little prefab shop or a couple prefab endeavors, they're becoming productization this year. If you started that before COVID, what have you seen? Because you're going around too, and you are in the productization space, my man.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. I mean, with the exception of a few people who took the time to innovate, there's always an outlier or two, but at least in getting to know them along the way, if you had a trepidation before COVID about prefab and productization, you flinched. COVID hit and you flinched, and then you missed that opportunity, right? Everybody else. And if you were already in, you didn't have that predisposition to flinch. You doubled down on what you were already doing because you were seeing some sort of benefit, knew you were going to see some sort of benefit. And that's a business acumen problem. It's a consistent problem you see. And I mean, I think that world I think we're about to see it go gangbusters. I mean, I think you're seeing it being asked for across the value chain, and that things are just starting to sync up. Like, there's this movement in technology. COVID created some sort of force multiplier pressure, but also opened some people's eyes, because it was like, oh, we can't go on site. What do we do? And a whole bunch of the trades were like, do it in the shop.
Right.
Yeah.
And they went, wait. And I'll be honest. I think some of the things we're going to see too is, like, I've seen it consistently over the last years. A lot more of the GCs are getting involved in certain either critical path trades or their own version of things to do themselves. I know a couple of them did it just because, like, I couldn't get drywallers. So, certain jobs I do my own drywall because it was killing my schedule, It
gave us the ability to, things kind of slowed down a bit, and we focused more on what we were doing, like you said, and we went problem hunting. I mean, it was all the things that kept us from productizing and being more standard with these things. We hunted those problems down. We used our version of the 5 why analysis. I mean, we went through and we're like, why can't we repeat this? Well, because some engineers spec this lavatory versus that lavatory. It's like, well, then why don't we talk to the engineers and find out, can we use the same lavatory on these? Like, we were able to hunt the problems down and attack them from different angles, because, there's always things getting in the way of trying to do that. But I just don't think, unless you have the time to sit and think about it, you don't think of those angles of attack. It's like, well, does it have to be a different lavatory? What if the people making the selection can sell it as the same one, and it's a cost savings to the owner?
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
It's how productization is going to affect DFMA. It really is, because
Yeah.
it sets up a situation in which, once you have products, now you have skin in the game for DFMA. You need to get involved in that early design process in order to get your products in there. And I know, Jeff, when you started your current endeavor, that was almost the first thing out of my mouth was, hey man, can you take the stuff that we're productizing and put it in your ecosystem, because then they can decide on day one, we want to look at productized mechanical systems. We want to look at some more modular stuff. And I think everybody's talked about it. I'm really hopeful that after all of this pause, we roar back, like we'll have the 20s of construction. Everybody's been bottled up for a while, and everybody will go nuts. We've been talking about doing things, it never happens. No one ever actually does it. I've had at least 2 projects this year get thrown on me, and they're like, go, get it going, get it done. And it was stuff that I heard people talk about for years, but no one would say go. And I feel like this year, with sort of the desire to just disrupt, because it's so ripe for disruption, I think you're going to see a lot of people race at that. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that to your point, like the explosion, like it happens. I think during the whole pandemic, we kind of realized that we were deficient in some areas as an economy, as a government, as a country, and we were maybe overbuilding in some other areas that we shouldn't have. So I think that the pause was probably good there, and you're going to start to see some focus in some different industry sectors that had been lagging before, and that focus is going to cause a need to do more with less. We're just going to have to get into that DFME mindset.
You shook the people out of the being comfortable just making money, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You took that away from them, so
right. I can just keep shitting out these strip malls over and over and over again, and guess what? We really don't need strip malls anymore.
Yeah, you know how you force innovation? You starve them a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I feel like maybe we've seen a little bit of that, and I'm with John. And I know all of us on here are the tech optimists. We're always on the bright side of it, and I think we're going to see big things.
We may also see flesh-eating robots. You guys, you're not privy to the Slack channel.
Stop. No. If you haven't seen it, we should share it at some point. There's a flesh-eating robot out there that got thrown around in the Dorks Slack channel, and of course, if you know us, we go down rabbit holes. Although at the end, we did figure out it's a vegan, right?
Right. It's supposed to figure out if you're a plant or not before it eats you.
That's important.
Nobody's going to change that code with a little like, hey,
no, that doesn't happen.
No.
A little anywhere, and boom, we're eating whatever we can eat. Oh, that's awful. No,
delete star
Travis,
star.
Yeah, Travis, you didn't talk about what are you up to? What's Helm up to? What do you guys focus on? Like, I know basically where your mind's at, but where's the business at? What you guys at?
I think it's probably pretty similar to everybody else. Like, we didn't have the slowdown as a company, and we had, 1 or 2 very large projects that we're not really supposed to talk too much about, but I'm sure if you catch me in Tampa, I'll tell you everything. Just kidding. Hopefully Brian didn't hear that. But
he doesn't listen.
We've had a couple of big projects that have carried us through in some of those industry sectors I talked about. We're starting to see some, obviously, like hospitals and biopharm and that kind of stuff, and that's some industries that we already served pretty well in the area, so they carried us through pretty well. But what that's highlighted for us is yes, we have the need for some productization and some better fabrication workflows, which we're working on, and we've got some things that we're moving on to do some consolidation and streamlining of our practices there. But what also highlighted is something that I've talked a lot about is and actually borrowed a lot from James is the blocking and tackling. We found that we still have some deficiencies in workflows with document management and workflows with project management and heck, just taking orders from the field. We're working with Jonathan on his field orders app to get some of that stuff highlighted. We engaged with a Microsoft partner developer and built a Power App, and we're getting that deployed out to kind of help collect some of that just the basic data of how do we get orders in from our shop? How do we have project assistants who are working on 12 projects? How are they keeping all the documentation up to date? Sometimes it sounds silly for a company like ours that's so far tech forward that we still struggle with that stuff, but it's just part of the process until the industry gets away from digital sheets of paper. I think we're all going to struggle for working with that. But you can throw your whatever construction cloud or Procore or anything like that, but every company has to struggle through those pains to figure out which is the right application for them. And in our case, we haven't really found that one yet. So we have a lot of pilots and stuff that we're doing along that. That's kind of the focus of Helm, is kind of getting back to that grassroots, because if you've ever met Brian Helm, he's a bright guy. He has a lot of thirst for growth within the company, and kind of my own personal goal in that growth is I'd like to grow the company without having to add a whole bunch of people. And the only way we're going to do that is kind of shuffle our tech stack, get rid of some of the waste in there, and find those opportunities to plug people in the system so the data flows and we don't have to just basically walk it from place to place.
When you talk about though that a lot of people and I don't know how much leadership really listens to us, but a lot of people go ape shit over that when you say that. Like, I want to grow this without growing people. But what you're talking about is creating elasticity.
Right.
Scalability means elasticity, right? It actually means we can grow without growing one for one. And there's not every area you can do that. I think prefabrication changes that a little bit, because you can do a little bit more with quote unquote less, but I actually think you're just kind of keeping up with zero. But you're talking about some of the other functions that cost money and overhead that
right.
Those positions are hard to fill. You're talking about accounting, you're talking about payroll, you're talking about, there's probably other areas I'm not even privy to. So for those people listening on that, it's about, you can grow your business, but elasticity allows you to actually shrink it back and not let all those people go. How many people in 08 walk through in 09 offices with cubes everywhere and half of them were empty? Well, I got in trouble at one point for saying, look, if we grow back and fill up all of those cubicles, we've failed.
Exactly.
But
that's a good point. I mean,
that's a lot about that digital transformation though that he's talking about. If you still have e-paper and you still have manual processes, those only scale with people, right?
Right.
Like you scale a manual process with manpower. You can't. But if you can go through your business, like I had somebody like do a phone call with me, and they were a contractor that was like a carpenter, and he said, "What's the first thing that you look at when you walk through?" And I was like, I look at how much paper you have, because it gives me a good idea of how fast you can grow. Because if I see forms on everybody's desk, I know that you're not going to be able to scale very well. And I think this really did teach some people like to go around and pick up the forms and say, we got to make this digital. We got to move to a platform, to cloud or whatever else. I got to say, through the whole COVID thing, I've been seeing more people in shops and everything than I did before it. So it's like weird for me to think that there's been a lot of people kind of stuck in their office, because I've been kind of not stuck in an office.
Well, Jonathan, I want to challenge you, right? Because the digital transformation piece, you got to get inside of my mind from the old days, and you got to go find those estimating folders, those PM or whatever it is, your company's like 3-digit code and then job code. And let me tell you, paper's easier to find because you can't accidentally put it in the top drawer and have it end up in the bottom. And that's a digital filing cabinet, man.
I totally, you know, what was funny is this new guy started working with Brad. We were talking about little programs that change your life. And one of them was called Everything. If you've never got it, it's free. It's a program that searches everything on your computer really fast. That's all it does. But now I keep it on a thumb drive because I go to people's freaking office and they're like, we have no idea what we have. And I'm like, I'm going to check forms on your server. And it brings back all the forms really. By the way, if you don't have that awesome program, you'll leave it on your desktop. You'll use it for everything, especially if you're VDC and BIM.
But Jeff, that's a paradigm shift and an education piece, right? I mean, to that digital filing cabinet. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not the answer. That's like one of my favorite analogies talks about, you know, we've got to dig a basement somewhere, right? So if I was the one that had to dig the basement and you put an excavator outside and a shovel, I'm going to dig the basement faster with a shovel because I don't know how to use the excavator. Right. But does that mean the shovel is the right answer? No, the right answer is you teach me how to use the excavator. And then I dig with the, you know, so it's the fact that the paper is faster because they don't know the alternative. They don't know how to do the alternative. Right.
Well, and maybe they're digitizing paper, which we've had that, you know, back and forth discussion over and over. Is it's really not unlocking the richness of it. Yeah, there's certain things you can use now to crawl it. Like we've all talked about the different things that are indexing and searching and doing great things with it. But ultimately, like for me, when I start to look at this stuff, it's just like you're exponentially growing your overhead. To your point earlier, Travis, about just growing people, you don't need to grow your storage. You don't need to compete with Azure and AWS. And oh, by the way, the Procores of the world and the Autodesks of the world and the Joins of the world and everybody are built on one of those platforms and taking advantage of that storage. And again, you're getting elastic because you don't have those things in your overhead to worry about, right? And they don't grow exponentially. That estimating folder or PM folder is going to grow exponentially and cost you far more money than you can do it in the cloud. And people don't really take to heart that, like, hey, if I adopt one of those things and that stays out there exponentially, that helps me not grow internally. It gives me access to those things, but also it changes my focus on what I can do, how nimble I can be. Like I just got up on my high horse and went nuts. So I'm sure I'd like send stuff to Travis. Don't send it to me. I don't want to. Don't talk.
Nice.
That's the haves and have not shift, Jonathan, that you were kind of referring to earlier. Like, I feel like some people who thought the glass was half empty were holding it in their hand and are still trying to hold the water for as long as they can. And it's like, no, it's going to go away. Like, sorry.
I gotta say though, have you, and I don't know if you guys do this, but like, you think about all the folder structure that a company has on like its network drive, all right? And then you look at like a program like Data that's going to go scrape that and turn it into usable data. And when it scrapes it, it's actually clouding it too, right? So if you were to take it, it doesn't just scrape those PDFs and that data. It scrapes it, puts it in the cloud. And if you were to go back and delete your server, you still have access to all of that historically. So I really see like some of the businesses that I see that have that hard network, I kind of just shrug and say, yeah, it's not going to be long before there's a program that makes that an easy transition. I would even say to like, you know, if you could say to Procore, hey, have an extension that ties into something like Data that's going to search all of your documents and strip them and digitize them and ingest them, you know? And you see that like with what people are doing with their servers and putting in local APIs. I've seen this like 3 or 4 times where like, well, you don't know where the folder is anymore because I replaced it with an API endpoint. and we're not using that. we direct mapped because we're tired of you guys saving crap to where you don't want it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I agree with you, Jeff, but I also feel like I'm almost waiting for that problem to get solved by software that tends to solve things all at once. It's not like a slow transition. It's like, we'll just read all your data into the cloud and organize it for you, and you guys can go and search it.
And
let's do it for you.
And Jake, Jake at Dato, I mean, that's exactly one of their key focuses with their program. Yeah, what's his thing he always talks about is a zero admin. You'll hear him say that a lot. So
I've been hacking with that program all year. That's like one of in Bluebeam too, and some other ones, but Dato is like one of those ones where I'm like, God, this has like all of this weird potential on the hacking side. So if you want to go play around, it's like a great one to just play around with. Like I have a friend here in Erie that's running his service department off of it. In like a really odd way. I saw what he was doing. I'm like, that's crazy. That's awful weird. I'm not trying to give Dato like a hard plug. I just actually was messing with it recently, and so it's on my mind.
Hey, if it's awesome, it's awesome. It's not it's not a hard plug. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I think I was just looking it up over here to see, but I remember working with ASTI and the people that applied with that 360 sync and starting to do some of that stuff too. Like some of that's out there, but I just feel like, Jonathan, I've been doing this for long enough that I've been waiting for that easy button, and it's just not coming. At least not fast enough for me, and fast enough for people to get nimble and get different. I mean, I don't know. For me, if you're talking to like smaller builders and people like that, it's just like, why have office overhead? Why have these things? Why not do things differently, deliver differently? I mean, when you're predicting out in the future, I think there's this like growing group of people who suffered through their late 20s, early 30s in our business that are going to wake up one day with that like grayness and go, I can freaking do this better. and just by adopting it from the ground correctly, you know what I mean? Like, not I can build better, because you can't, but you can build a better infrastructure. You can support people better. You can provide a better HR experience, those types of things.
I would be interested to see that. I would be interested to see if somebody tried to just to build their business to do what we do just from scratch right now. Like we are building the bridge as we're using it at the same time, which is going to come with some issues and some errors, and there's a lot of duct tape and stuff that goes along with it. It would be interesting to see somebody, a Jeff Elwell or insert construction technologist here that just said, you know what, I'm going to start a construction company, taking all of the stuff that I know is the best in class now, and just start with that. Start there.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see.
No baggage.
Yeah.
No baggage.
Well, I feel like that's the train that's going to run y'all over once the bridge is built. It's just like, and it went right past you. But that's the challenge of being an innovator.
I would say though that didn't Katera kind of,
I was about to
put
say
that into I thought that put it into a weird state for me, because I looked at what Katera did, and years ago when I was working at Stanley, they asked me what I thought of Katera, and I said, it'll be out of business. And they said, why? I said, it's making doors. It's not going to make doors faster than the supply chain can provide them. It's just not going to do that. So there's obviously some thinking there that's wrong, but I think that like you said, a Jeff Elwell, there's a ton of construction people we should put in that. Anybody that's behind me almost, I think they are the people that can look at what's out there and say, well, that didn't work, but man, it was the right flavor. And can we try it again? Just not
right size, wrong shape, or whatever, it's
they failed. That doesn't mean it was wrong. And if you talk to them, and there's none of them left anymore, right? Like they can't come after me.
They'll key your car, man. They'll be at your house.
They can key my car.
Dude. They're probably going to run in on you real soon with the dogs.
Okay. Their tech stack was almost as broken as making doors. Like their answer to everything when you talk to him was like, well, that's not our perspective. And I was like, I know you said that like 6 times. I don't care what, how are you going to integrate and I'm like, okay, you guys don't have an answer. You are literally building doors and using DOS and expecting to do something transformative.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
You created admin positions for stuff you were adopting, you know, it's like, yeah, like, because nobody could make it work. Nobody could manage it.
Wasn't
Right.
their tagline that we're a software company that opened a construction, thing?
Yeah.
And I think what I came away with was, yeah, and you didn't get enough construction experience behind you to make that successful.
Yeah.
Like that is that, oh, well, you've been doing it wrong all these years, construction. It's like, nah, not really, man. Like we have a lot of faults, but the amount of experience is just, without the experience behind it, it's very, very tough to be successful.
Yeah,
That's why I think
agree.
it's going to be somebody in that age group, like not aging people out or anything, but just who suffered through it, but also who knows that not to take your all idea of plumbing, but the plumbing from my idea and the plumbing from a business perspective, and automating that and really making that simple and easy, and letting the weight of the company be in all of that experience, but the technical acumen being able to keep up with it and deliver differently. And I think there's a huge opportunity for it. And I still think it's coming. I really do. I think we don't know who's in the shadow that can do it. But I think somebody's going to do it in multiple different areas.
Well, there's probably somebody already doing it. We're just not, if they're doing it right, they're doing it on a small scale, getting their feet underneath of them and everything like that. But there's probably people out there that are trying. And if you're one of those, come talk to us. We're always looking for cool people to talk to.
Or here we go. The Dorks are opening a construction company.
Absolutely.
None of us have time for another job.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
Bone points out a lot.
What was that? No, go.
Bone points out a lot that one of the biggest problems with trying to do that from scratch, all technology driven, is the contract language, the agreements, and the other parts of construction, like the legal liability and everything else that goes in construction, is really pretty monolithic. And trying to fight that is something where again, I'm glad there's the Josh Bones, the Sean McGuires, and all of the people out there sort of banging the drums with the legal authorities and the authorities having jurisdiction, saying this is coming, you need to get ready for this.
Yeah.
Because there are still areas, Travis, where they lead joints, right?
Right.
like that's the, so
Like
I mean,
massive
if you want to talk about
areas.
old plumbing technology.
Because you had a fire one time, Travis, in Chicago, right? So there was that fire. So we have to do this. Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's not going to be easy, but I mean, you started to hit on it. And again, we're not paid to talk about anybody's stuff, but I mean, I'm just thinking when you talked about that with legal, you got Document Crunch. When you talk about it with marketing, you have Project Mark. When you talk about it with digitization and access to files, you have things like Dado. You have all of these new incredible tools that they're not necessarily the tool of the trade. They're the fuel for the trade, for the business that does it. And for me, that's where there's this just lack of understanding of innovation and scalability, like you talked about, Travis. It's just like there's so many better ways. I learned this from, I forget who even talked about it, but I had somebody stand up and go, I don't want to hear about innovation anymore unless it affects somebody in the field. And I tried to look through that lens and I realized, wait, I can have that argument about a lot of things. One of them being like, how does payroll and HR and employee portals help that? Well, if that person on the job site has no idea and no access and has to find their paychecks or whatnot and their pay stubs to figure out how much time off they have or figure out what this is, when all of that can be run right here on an easy app, and you can see all your paid time off and you can request it and you can grab your freaking medical cards or whatever it is, that improves their life.
Yeah.
In a significant way beyond what people think,
well, and if you think of it in practical terms too, if I think I speak for most people, if I have a problem with time off, pay stub, insert whatever HR function here, I'm not waiting until my shift is done to go take care of it. I'm leaving work that I'm supposed to be getting done, and I'm taking up somebody's time. So there's direct savings right there. If you
I
implement that stuff.
promise you, find a job site where one person didn't get his paycheck on time. They all stop working until the problem is solved. I promise.
Well, that's the on the business instead of in the business. You've got somebody in the back that's slamming down the keys trying to get that in, when instead, if it was digital, they're looking at the data, they can go like, hey, Manuel usually has 40 hours on average a week, if not more. Why do I have zero PTO apply? That's a red flag. Mm-hmm. I should be looking at it because for exactly that reason, Trent. And then, I mean, the job site stops, and then somebody in the office is printing a check or getting petty cash and getting it down there so that things get going again. There's a whole nother savings there, right? That you catch you catch that problem before it's a problem, right? It's like BIM, catch it virtual before it's physical.
Right.
Yeah. We talk a lot about BIM tech and all that. And that the finance piece is something that we don't talk about enough. I mean, it is the single most important, like that's the single most important part of the company. I think as far as productivity goes,
don't exist.
Well, and even for productivity, I mean, it is a huge piece. That one we don't talk about enough.
The CFMA stat, right? You guys know this: 75% of all construction businesses that go bankrupt are profitable at the time they go bankrupt. It is a cash flow management issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of that can be helped with technology. Like there's a lot of other reasons why, you know, this is it's like a technology and finance industry that dabbles in building things at times, but you know, ultimately.
Yeah. Being underbilled on a large project, being under collected is huge for a subcontractor it will put a profitable company out of business.
Right.
Yeah. It's just not getting bills out on time. I mean, that's a big thing.
I think it's a big thing coming too is this whole idea of punching above your weight, right? Using technology to just fight with the big dogs. That a lot of that stuff's, a lot of those barriers are starting to break down. They're not gone, and there's good reason why in a lot of cases they're not gone quite yet. I just think, you know, we get behind a lot of, focusing on, you talk about focusing on people getting paid, talk about focusing on decisions and how they stick, focusing on productization and how it gets applied. If we're spending all of our time working on those things, we can't focus on these things, right? That side of the business, and it's no different than any other industry. That's the thing for me that gets a little weird is I mean, yeah, we cost code things out. We code things to jobs, et cetera. Some of that's a little bit interesting when it comes to accounting, but ultimately, like, cash runs every business, right? It's the fuel that drives the engine. It's not why we do it or what we do or how we do it, but it is the fuel. So we should be leveraging that. So then we can focus on productization. We can focus on changing the experience in this industry and doing things better. Man, we should do these more. I love the high hope.
Yeah, that's fun.
I think one of the frustrations from the field though about technology is you're not helping them build the way they want to build. And that I think is the problem is like I was at an AU and this engineer stood up in front of a bunch of contractors and said, well, you're really just problem solvers. And I was like, no, they really just like to build shit. Like they don't necessarily like problems, in fact, at all. They would like other people called engineers to be problem solvers. You just think everybody's you. And I think that when I've talked to foremen at least, and they give me that digital divide thing where they're saying, hey man, I don't want to hear about it unless you help me build better. They're really looking like, I mean, at the end of their day, they look up at the work they put in that day and that's their report card, right? They do get paid. And I'll admit, man, if they're not going to do this for free, this is not a free thing. But, you know, I mean, we talk about what motivates people and it's not usually the money. It's usually, you know, autonomy, mastery, and you know, those types of things are the focus. And I think for a lot of the people that build, it's the end product. Like half the reason I have some of the hobbies I have is because some of the other things I do don't have an output for years. So I better damn well make something or I'm going to be miserable. And I feel like the prefab, don't take this the wrong way, took away for a lot of the people that aren't in charge, that feel of I'm an artist, I know what I'm doing. And there are people that took it on that are awesome. Like you run into this foreman, it's like, all that prefab means is I can make 3 buildings all by myself, and run far more work. It just gives me better hands and a better way to build. But I do feel like, that's really what they're asking is they're like, show me something that's going to make it easier for me to build so that when I look up there, I know, hey, you gave me a tool. This is better than what I was doing before. And I feel like that's the sales pitch that we lose as technologists every once in a while, where we're just not showing them that.
Well, and poorly executed prefab turns them right back into problem solvers.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that,
I don't want any problems in the field either. Screw that.
Well, that's just what I was going to say. I'm kind of hoping that what we're striving for is greasing the wheels and streamlining that whole process. Like, I'm not a pipe fitter, or I'm not fill in the blank. So I can't speak from experience, but I don't see what they physically do in the field changing dramatically. But all the stuff that stacks up to get the work there, to get the work to the face, that's where we can have a lot of impact. There's still going to be some guy that has to get up on a lift and hang something over his head. Maybe we'll have robots and stuff down the road that help, but the physical action is still going to be somewhat similar. So if we can apply technology to get it to that point where the work actually gets in place, that I think that's where we make our biggest impact.
Dude, I have a great story for you. I'm sitting in the airport in Erie and I'm wearing a steel toe shirt. So it says construction tech on it. And this electrician is beside me and he goes, "Oh, you in construction?" I'm like, yeah. He says, "You make boots?" And I go, "No, I don't make boots." But I said, "I work on construction tech." He says, "Oh, like those new electric crimpers." And at the time when I heard construction tech, all I heard was software. He's like, no, these crimpers, they got the big battery. I don't have to smell. Yeah, I mentioned it on the content crew. Yeah. The guy was like, "I don't have to smell like gas." And his voice was slowly rising into preacher level, like where he's like, "I don't smell like gas. My wife loves it when I come home. I can pick up, and I almost amened him at the end of the thing. But in his mind, as somebody that's working in the field every day, building things, when he hears construction tech, what he heard was tools. I make him tools. And I actually left that. I instantly texted to Hero, was working for Milwaukee at the time, and said, "I just had somebody blow up. I wish I could have got that on tape. They just love you." But that idea that we need to think really hard about like where they're at with that. What is construction tech? Because very, very easy to implement a tool in your company. You just hand them out, give basic training. But those basic tools, man, that stuff is where I think we're going to see them change the way they build.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The come along, though, I still would say is the best piece of construction tech and prefabrication. If you were going to pick one important field technology for prefab, probably a come along.
The come along.
Because I got to make that crap fit and to move about.
No, see, but that's poorly executed prefab has made them problem solvers.
Oh yeah,
that's part of the.
I like that theme there is like, oh, you're all problem solvers. No, you all have made us problem solvers. We'd like to be builders.
Your problem creators.
There's a lot of truth to that, but
and
cutting edge, bleeding edge,
downhill. But I'm interested, Jonathan, because I talked a lot recently about the digitization of tools and the usage of the changing that digital divide. I never thought about getting those electric crimpers, getting those other things in people's hands that may actually help them go over. Like we see a lot of connected tool systems, right? And I think tools are going to start telling us far more about the jobs. And I know that gets creepy to people, but I feel like if those tools are helping them, like they're able to be preset for different jobs or different things you're doing, or to be able to send information back, that you might be bridging a digital gap. Like it might be one of those, hey, you've been using this stuff on your job site. Take a look at what we know now.
Yeah, dude. How about this? I'm building something out. I'm building something in my garage and I have like a lot of extra tools. And I have this habit of putting down a tool, stepping over to do another process, and then forgetting where the hell I put my tool. Can you imagine how easy it would be to hook a tool up to a positioner so that I can look at my watch and say, where did I put down the drill? And I would like to do that. That would save, I would give applause to anybody that can have me look at my watch and say, where did I put all of those drill bits? I know I have drill bits, and I know I'm going to spend 30 minutes looking for them because they're under a piece of cardboard somewhere in my garage. You know, those are things where we have like all the pieces are there, but no one's built it.
I want that app to be called Hey Dumbass. Hey Dumbass, where did I put my drill bits?
I don't think they're going to market that. I think it'll be Marco.
Oh, well, that's their mistake.
That's their mistake.
I love that, man.
Construction Dorks Consulting is offering Marco to the yes.
And the watch goes, Polo. Hey, cool. I know where it's at.
You're welcome, industry. Got it.
Well, but I mean, not for nothing. It's like I had a talk with Marav Oren recently that runs Versatile, and like the amount of information they're getting from a crane and its picks and drops and what it does that can tell information. My mind immediately went to like, okay, the tools can tell us. What about consumables? Like, how many times are you running your drywaller, running to get more nails, or, running to get something else when you don't need to? Like, there's this whole, Travis, you said it a second ago, like grease the wheels. Like, there is so much production capability. And maybe Marav just beat it through my head that like, these are manufacturing job sites where we have to look at them as continuing production. Like we've been talking about the manufacturing, or what is it? The industrialization of construction. And maybe it's that we have to stop thinking about it's in a factory and to that it is the factory in many cases, right? Like it's an extension.
It's just a different factory. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and plumbers and pipe fitters are producing larger and larger. I said this to somebody before. I'm like, you used to have a whole bunch of fittings that came in different packages. Now they come in one package already together, right? And you like not having to do that. They're like, yeah, well, we're just taking that from like shrinky dink to really big.
Yeah.
So we can do these things but we need information to flow that through. And it goes, we got to get buy-in from somebody to go like, I get it. I see how this works.
Yeah. Yeah. And that same watch idea with the tool, the problem is somebody puts on that watch and then they think they're being tracked, or they think that their production's being monitored in some way that again, you remove the autonomy and now they don't want to do the work.
But they'll thumb through TikTok on break.
I was going to say, and they give all their personal information
to
their phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, wave your phone around. That's the tracking device.
Trust me, we're not using your info near as much as everything else on your phone.
Exactly.
And in fact, I promise, most of us are trying to use it to help you.
Right.
Because if we can digitize and production, do a lot of productization and create better production, then ultimately you're not dealing with as many issues. And Jonathan, I like that statement. Like the mind shift is I can build 3 buildings instead of 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
I like that.
Make me a better, faster builder. You know what I think the scary part is, Jeff? Amazon. All the reporting you hear on the people working the floor at Amazon warehouses really makes it hard. I can't tell you how many times I get that thrown back at me from people like, well, it's going to be like Amazon where they want to know when we're using the bathroom. And it's like, well, I kind of want to know when you're using the bathroom so I can move the bathroom closer to you. But other than that, I don't care. I would like the bathroom to be exactly like when you feel like you're ready. I'd like the technology and the data to tell me it's 2 feet away.
If you're in the Porta John for half an hour, I may schedule a doctor's appointment for you.
Yeah.
So no, that's the James Benham. Like he's been saying it for years. And this was like an early on. And I wish I could remember the gentleman's name that built it, but he built an Excel spreadsheet and it was based on when to move the porta potties and the material piles. And James said, I don't care how often you have to go to the bathroom. I care how far you have to walk.
Yeah.
That's it. Mm-hmm. I'm not monitoring those things. And you're right. Removing the autonomy. We can't let it remove the autonomy, right? We have to make them a part of being autonomous in ways to allow them to move it forward somehow.
And if anybody's ever read, like the guy Daniel Pink wrote that book Drive, and he he got motivation right. He said it's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. He said that's really what you get with self-motivated people. Now, money weighs into that, right? Because I will dig ditches for you if you pay me $1 million an hour, and I will be happy and every day. But I think he really dug into that, Jeff. If you ever get a chance, man, the book recommendation, everybody should read Drive. I even bought it for my CEO when I worked at Spader. I'm like, you should read this. It even talks about remote workers and everything. It's awesome.
I put it on my Amazon list.
So I have a question for the show about nothing, if you guys don't mind me switching gears a little bit. What are y'all reading? Like, are you reading anything that we all need to read there, Jeff? Or are you're a little busy? I mean, obviously, compared to humans.
You know what? I got a great one recently at a Kirk conference. And it kind of just goes over what we're going at, and it crystallized some ideas for me. And it was the Resource Revolution. It's called Resource Revolution by Stefan Heck and Matt Rogers.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It really talks about just the shift that we're finally seeing in our industry, but also basically across the board, that we have to look at more and more of this revolution of the resources that we have and the people that we have and how we apply those resources.
Cool. It's now in my Kindle sharpening cart.
There you go.
Jeff pushes back at me so often I have to read what he's reading so I can know what he's going to push back at me next about.
Yeah, it's embarrassing enough to admit, but I've been so far behind on reading in that. So I actually recently, here in the past couple of months, finally got around to reading Range, which do you remember when we got we got that one from one of the tech conferences, right?
From the MCA Tech Conference two years ago. Yep.
So it took me nearly 2 years to finally get around to reading it. But for those of you that haven't read Range, phenomenal.
It's a fantastic book, and it's one of the ones that, as I mentioned, my daughter's very heavily involved in sports, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy. And what I enjoy is the fact that she's involved in so many, and that's kind of one of the concepts in Range. So when I've tried to find clever ways to bring it up, if I see a parent, like I said, my daughter's 12, so it's a little young to start to specialize, right, in particular sports. So anytime I see a parent trying to force their kid to specialize, I'm like, you should maybe find some time to read this book.
This might be a bad idea. Yeah. You might want to, I mean, it's the power of a generalist, right? I mean, it's a really, really good book
it's a fantastic
for any of you listening. It took me way too long to read it. Yeah.
Say that again, Jonathan.
Most construction techs are rangy. They're rangy versus specialized.
Right.
Like we have a bunch of specialized people that work for us that do things way better than we do. So we're rangy, and that kind of makes it work. We can aggregate and be rangy people.
Isn't that the same thing as the 70%er? I mean, I feel like that
it really is, man. Yeah. I think that's the thing. We specialize up to 70%, and then we're bored.
Right. You get bored of it. Yeah, you're done. Yeah, it's just
you guys can handle it from there.
For you business transformation people, the one I've really enjoyed lately is Adam Grant's Think Again. I had been running my head against the wall consistently and realized, oh wow, like there is all these ways. And you said it earlier that the electrician, Jonathan, you were talking to, got preachy, right? Like we all preach and proselytize or try to, convince someone to change their mind. That does not work.
Right.
Like I cannot get up. And it's funny because we consistently ask this, and I think you noticed, everybody's noticed at some point, you're like, why are we always preaching to the choir? It's like, well, because the choir's converted. So they want to hear it. Right. The rest don't. But what you have to do, and what Adam talks a lot about, is giving people space to rethink their own ideas and change their own mind. And, a little secret I let out at one point, and we'll see if anybody listens in, but it's like, you ever had that boss where you have to say, like, it's never done until they say it's their idea? That's actually a really damn good skill to come up with and learn how to do. And if somebody's doing it to you, they're probably pretty good. at getting you to
Yeah.
rethink, because it just has to be your idea. You have to be free to change your own mind. And the studies say the more I push, the more you're going to get defensive and hang on. The more I open up and ask you questions, I give you that opportunity. And to me, that, that one changed my entire focus and game on how I approach people when I'm talking to them about anything. That helped me in my personal life as well. Like, this is powerful work. To get people to think differently, especially when you're talking about all the different things in our world that are, everybody's preaching about.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. There's other strategies too, just in dealing with people. And, the other one is, when you're trying to sell an idea or you're trying to pitch, and, being able to ride that fine line of knowledgeable and arrogant, right? You've got that, like, you need to project yourself to the point where the person trusts you and trusts your knowledge, but you can't make them feel dumb. Right.
Yeah.
And that there's,
Right.
And I think in the contact world, when we try to kind of cheerlead and pitch ideas, sometimes you have to be careful with maybe being a little too over the top with your target audience on that stuff.
Right on. Did you put one up, Travis? What are you reading?
Oh, I'm in a little bit of a weird place with my reading. I haven't done like any, business specific books, but I've floated. Well, I read The Four Agreements. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. It's a really small book. I think I read it in a night and a half, but I highly recommend that one. Don Miguel Ruiz, Four Agreements. I can't pronounce it's something I picked up from Joe Rogan. He brings it up all the time, but there's four agreements. He goes through the book where you be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And it kind of goes into the theories and everything behind that. It's a really quick read. And then I picked up Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. Actually, I got it for Christmas. So I've been working my way through that one. And sometimes I just need to not think. So what's that movie that Tom Cruise was in? Shit.
You got to give us one more thing than Tom Cruise.
Because
I
there's
worked
a
in the
lot.
store, but I can't do just one thing.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me get out the Google's machine.
When did we Google machine? And I had to.
Oh, it's got to be
remember.
cocktail. It's got to be cocktail.
No. He was at the movie. In the movie, he's a retired CID agent and comes back and finds a guy that was accused of doing like sniping.
Recker?
What's that? Reacher.
Is it like
Jack Reacher?
Yeah, Jack
That's
Reacher.
it. So I,
Right.
sometimes I like those psychological thriller type books. So I've been reading a lot. That's what I read when I just need to decompress for a little bit. So nothing like super groundbreaking business. The Four Agreements one is like a kind of, I would call it a self-help book, a personal book, and I really enjoyed that one. So I recommend that. It's a really quick read. Like I said, it's maybe 80 pages. It's pretty quick.
So you guys know I'm totally preparing for business travel again. So I'm trying to get a lot of books on my list. So I have something to do on the planes.
Right.
Like, I need something to read, man. We'll hit up the boys.
That was one question. I have a heart out here, so we got to wrap up soon. But when Trent was talking about the conferences open up again, I had one period since I started this job where my boss is like, you should probably be in the office sometimes. So I started to kind of think really hard about how often I want to travel. I can travel. There are some things that I'm part of the MCA tech committee. I'm going to be there. Trimble's conference. I think I forget the name all of a sudden, but
is it Base Camp? Is that what it's called? Or?
No, it's something like that. But now that they own Viewpoint, I do the Viewpoint conference, and so there are some conferences every year that are just kind of, yes, I'm going to do that, and for some reason they all happen in like November, which can get a little bit brutal. But so what I'd like to hear from each of you. What's kind of your pacing? Is it once a month? Is it, if it's in my backyard, I'm going? Because that's been an easy thing for me too, with being close to Chicago. Is if there's something in Chicago, I can pop over for a day.
I think once a month is heavy for me. Yeah, I think that's probably too much with my responsibilities.
Sure.
Gosh, maybe half that. I'm thinking probably 5 to 6 a year.
Okay.
Is a responsible number for me.
Responsible.
Yeah, I mean, it's been higher than that, but that tends to get in the way of actually accomplishing a lot of the things that I need to do.
And are you going, I think a lot of times all of us go to ones that were chosen to speak at, but I mean, is that pretty much the driver, or are you going because I think the topics interest us too, but
yeah, because I'm even at the point of saying no to speaking at certain ones, and even saying no to ones that I actually would like to go to. There's like the CPC that, what Nathan does is it's a great thing, but I have to be choosy, so you're even kind of shutting the door on really, really good ones. Because like being on the innovation tech committee, like that one, those are a must. And honestly, everyone should be at those anyways, because those are probably some of the best on the calendar. But yeah, the topics, and then I always try to leave at least one of those to be something new.
Okay.
So, you're not just hitting the same 5 or 6 every year. I think you need to leave one to try something new, because then you don't know how to shuffle your deck every year.
Right.
I think you're just going to ride out the same ones.
Sure. Cool. Jeff, you're in a little bit of a different position because you're schlepping in.
Yeah.
Stuff, but
I mean, with my world, it's a little different. I'm quite frequently out there all the time, many per month. I think if you do it over the year span, they go in spurts for sure. They seem to fall in these shoulder seasons. Rob McKinney, coined some of the phrases of, it's conference season again.
Right.
That's when construction starts to slow down, conferences start to go up. But, for me, I mean, I'll plug myself. If anybody's interested in having, speakers that talk about new things, that's what I love to do, is get out there and change minds, open ideas, give people that place to have the aha moment. Also, I'm out there to spread the word. I'm an evangelist for Join, and that is, part and parcel to my job. So, and I think some of the things I have in the works, hint, hint, things coming, keep your eyes open. I think they're going to open up for even more time for me to be out there facilitating conversation and having talk. So it's a real different world for me. There is nothing better. I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was just having one of those moments where, like, what am I doing? And it's like, well, every podcast where I'm talking, and every time I'm on those calls with, potential customers or industry people, or I'm out at shows, it never feels like a day of work.
Right.
Like, I'm the one who has to find a way to come down at the end of the night to fall asleep. And if done right, and I follow Rob's rules of don't drink brown liquor and in bed by midnight, I can go round the clock, man. It's just like, this is what I love. So for me, that's sort of, I know I run it in a different world that way. And I think, one thing that does frustrate me for people in my position, we can't sit in and listen to everybody that talks, but you best go find some of it. I'm always looking for that topic at everyone. I try to pick out 2 top talks at each one, because you're going to learn something. I mean, there's so many people that have so many great things to teach you. You just can't stop learning it. And you can't show up at a show, sit at your booth, maybe go up and do your speech and split. You're not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
Get involved. Listen, like that stuff with Epstein, I went and read Range and I was like, this is awesome. Yeah. I mean, you guys remember, this was cool. I had a talk with somebody yesterday, and you remember when Malcolm Gladwell, were you guys at MCAA National when Gladwell spoke?
I was not, no.
You were Jonathan, you were there. I didn't know if you made it to that one or not, but he talked about this whole thing. Like that guy is huge, right? He's far bigger than anybody around any of us or in this construction tech space or construction space. And he did his homework and he showed up and he talked about how construction is more of soccer versus basketball. And he went through this whole thing about how on basketball, you can get 3 stars and change the game and win titles. And that in soccer, you actually have to focus on the lowest common denominator. Your worst players, upgrading them has a better impact than it does, say, going and getting a Messi or somebody like that. And that struck me as like, that's what we all need to do who are out there trying to educate and talk to people is like, you got to invest. They're not going to listen to you if you don't listen to them, if you don't take part in it. Now, granted, everybody's got a day job. And if you're selling software, you're working with customers, your customer success, you got those things, but take the time, go listen to people, man. And then get involved afterwards. You know, it's one thing to take people out to drinks and try and sell them some stuff. How about just take them out and listen and see what's on their minds? And on that note, before I let us go, talk to us, guys. I started this with this. This is a grassroots show, and we do this out of passion. Nobody pays for us. And in fact, we pay things out of pocket to get this stuff done, but it's because we freaking love to do it. Yeah. And we want it to keep going. We lost a little momentum. There's no complaints around that. Everybody has those moments, but we need you. Tell your friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Got an idea? Come on. You know, want to take over the dang show for the day? I'll open this thing up and I'll go sit there and I'll listen in and I'll drink my Zip Fizz and have a good time.
We've done it before.
We have
a lot. Yeah, it's fun. Those are good shows.
Those are fun shows. Hey, Jonathan, I know we got to wrap this thing up. I know Travis has to go somewhere. What are your final thoughts for the year? Or for the beginning of the year, your predictions, your thoughts, whatever it is.
You know, I think that we have a pretty interesting year coming. You know, you talked about how often you want to go to these conferences and everything else. I have to think, looking back, I've been in such a mad dash to get my production work done that I have not had a chance to really listen at these conferences. I'm always working, and like even to the point where I'm leaving in the middle of the day to go up to my hotel room to do work on, you know, I started bringing extra screens to hotel rooms so that I could make this work.
Wow. You might have a problem.
Television.
You got to stop doing that.
Yeah. So my hope this year is to cut some of the production, but to focus in on some of the great ideas and some of the great people out there. I have not spent as much time this year talking to like fabulous people as I did 2 years ago. Like 2 years ago, I would take the time, anybody who'd call, I'd spend some time with them talking about what they do. I'd like to do that again. And as I go to all these shows, and I'm probably going to be like twice a month. I'm going to guess. I'm going to hope for once a month and end up twice a month. But because I have to go to fab shops too. But I'm just hoping to meet some new people that really have a passion for the industry. You know what I mean? I that's my favorite conversations is you have a beer with somebody who's just so over the top for this industry that they preached. You know, see if they can get an amen out of me.
I'm looking forward to that too. Awesome.
Hey, that's a challenge. Everybody get an amen out of Jonathan when you see him. Go there, preach on, you know, and Jonathan, my advice would be quality, man. Like if you're going to spend the time, carve it out. If you have to carve out less to go to less, carve out less, but make it higher quality. Man.
Don't take monitors with you. Don't take them.
Unless they're for show and tell or R&D or something like that.
Come on,
man. Our own Most, right? Come on, man. Trent, what about you, man? Wrap her up for us, you know, kind of look ahead, throw things out there for our dork folk. We need a dork term, by the way.
Yeah.
Or are they just dorks?
Dorks.
We said the dork web. So I'm going to keep it quick and let's do like Jeff said, we lost some steam, you know, towards the end of last year. I think this year we build the dork web. I think, you know, get out there, tell some people. I want to see more people in this show. I want to see more people getting involved with it. And that's my prediction. End of 2022. This thing's going to be bigger and better. I'll leave you with that.
Travis.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Like, you know, we've often talked about that this is the favorite thing that we get to do the weeks that we get to do it. So I'm with Trent and John. I want to get the steam back. Let's, you know, you guys are good at steam systems, so let's get the steam back in this thing and get it rolling. And I have some personal goals. I've been wanting to get back into serious powerlifting and get on the stage, so I want all that steam back. I want to push. Let's push.
I like that. Everybody's talking about moving forward, pushing forward, getting things rolling, getting more steam going. It's the only thing I'll ask is somebody get Flaviar to listen in so we can call this paid for. No,
right.
I had to throw that in there since we almost went a full episode without a Flaviar.
So. Dang,
almost
lost our touch.
And before we wrap, I want to thank Jacinda for engaging in the chat. It's been awesome.
Yeah, Sal, we just lost you, buddy, but thank you for stopping by. Ryan, thanks for stopping by. People come on in and stop by. You never know when we're going to do something crazy. I think we'll have a few of those this year. Like we said, we're going to bring more dorks in, but we're also going to do a little bit more of this rapping. And if you got topics that you just want to hear us say things that people just won't say, then we're here for it. Because this is episode 39. Don't call it a comeback. We've been here and will be here for years. We're excited. Thanks for joining us live. Stay tuned for our next episode. We might even drop a little bit along the way from the MEP Innovation. And if you see us at MEP Innovation, make sure you talk to us about your ideas. Drop in, say hello. Thanks.
Don't make eye contact with Jeff. It freaks him out.
Yeah, it does. It does. It totally gets freaky.
Oh, guys. All right.
All right.
And we're out.
That's fine. I'm not saying that just doing it at the conference is a bad thing.
Well, at the conference, we can give them out for whatever reason we want.
Right.
Buy us a drink, we'll give you a flask.
I mean, we're going to try to record a couple things while we're there, right?
Yeah. The other thing that we might want to bring up before we start the show, at least, is the opportunity to go and do a whiskey tour, Construction Dorks whiskey tour with Dato and some other people.